As you are starting to put together the different pieces of your law school application, or you're starting to look at what all is included in a law school application, as you look around, you may start seeing something called soft factors being discussed. There are lots of different ways to talk about them. There are a variety of different ways to think about them. Their importance varies school to school, application to application, cycle to cycle. They're really kind of nebulous. If you are looking for a little more clarity, I want you to stick around. If you're new, my name is Alice Foley, and I'm the Director of Pre-Law Programming here at S. Montgomery Admissions Consulting, a brand of Barrier Breakers, a nonprofit organization that is dedicated to increasing legal education access to historically underrepresented and under-resourced students. I come to this work with almost a decade of law school admissions experience, and today I'm really excited to be sharing some of that experience with you. So let's dive in. At their very broadest, soft factors can be pretty much anything that isn't your undergraduate GPA and your LSAT score. So that's literally every other piece of your application. Essays, resume, letters of rec, personal statements, addenda, anything. For our purposes today, I want to focus on three things. I'm going to talk about your resume, I'm going to talk about letters of recommendation, and I'm going to talk about your essays. Let's go ahead and run them down first. Before we get started though, I do want to mention the weight with which soft factors are approached is very different school to school, cycle to cycle, applicant to applicant, like I said. But I can tell you with 100% certainty that they are important across the board. Do not phone these things in. LSAT and GPA are absolutely important, but these are too. So back to resumes. I want to first start off and say, if you are sitting here looking at your resume, or sitting here listening to me having looked at your resume, and there is a lack of legal internships, legal jobs, whatever it is, you haven't had a ton of firsthand experience in the legal field. That's okay. The easiest way that I can describe it, and the way that I used to describe it when students would come screaming into my office, terrified that their application is going to be terrible because they have never worked in a law firm, they don't actually know what they want to do specifically yet, that they're never going to level up against these students who have been working in law firms that their parents own forever and ever and ever. I'm going to stop you right there. It is completely fine if you have not had the chance to intern in a law office or to work as a legal assistant or a paralegal. The easiest way to consider it is to think about college. Law school, it doesn't matter what major you choose. It doesn't matter what you study in undergrad. It doesn't matter what you study in grad school. The job market is the same way. We expect you to have a breadth of experiences. I love when my classes are filled with people who have had different experiences. We are not like med school or dental school or pharmacy school, where there are prereqs. There are classes that you have to take before you can even consider applying. There's a major that you have to be a part of. We don't care as law schools what it is you've chosen to study before you get to us. The other thing that I want to touch on really quickly is that not everyone can afford to take an unpaid internship with a law firm. Not everyone can afford to go do some fancy legal internship, because they have to work to afford to support their family or themselves. That's the other thing that we do understand as committee members. It's something that's always running in the back of our minds. Instead, what we want to see on resumes for any applicant are things like commitment. Do you have 25 jobs at age 25 and the longest you ever spent at one was like 3 months? I have some questions. I'd love to know more about it. Doesn't mean it's bad. I just want to know more about it. Or responsibility. I see that you have worked at the same place every summer for the entire time that you were in college, and I'm looking at the things that you've done, and it seems like there is increasing responsibility. You are starting to show leadership skills within that job. That's awesome. That's the kind of stuff that we want to see. The other thing that I really, really, really want to touch on, and this is particularly for those of you out there that may have had some life experience between graduating from college and applying to law school, your resume is going to be critical. That paints a much more accurate picture of who you are right now when you are applying to law school than an undergraduate GPA from 15 years ago will. So I want you to make certain that you are showcasing the very best of the experiences that you've had. I would love to know what it is you've done graduating from college and choosing to apply to law school. That's a big change. Plenty of students start after they've worked for a bit. That's totally fine. Some of my most successful students took several years off before they applied to law school and did all sorts of other stuff. Show me what it is that you've been doing. Show me your accomplishments in your workplace through your resume. The next piece that I want to touch on in resumes is volunteer work. Volunteering is great. What it tells me as a committee member is that you care about the world around you, whether it is at a very, very local level, a state level, national, global, whatever it is. There is something that is important enough to you that you've chosen to spend your time there. And again, like with work experience earlier, showing commitment, showing elevated responsibility the longer you stay in a place is great. Last thing that I really, really want to touch on, and it's another one of those, this is super important in some places, but not quite as important in law schools, is publication and research work. In many of the STEM fields and a lot of PhD programs, publication is huge. Like, you have got to be published. Not so here. It's awesome. Absolutely put that on your resume because it takes work to get something that you have worked on published, regardless of what it was published in. If you've done major research projects, I want to know about them. But for those of you that didn't have a chance to do this for whatever reason, that's okay too. I don't want you to panic and be like, oh my God, I have to do a major research project. I got to get published in the next 6 months. You don't. I'm sure you were doing something else that is relevant to the things that you care about and is relevant to your life. For my students that are in college right now, and you're thinking, I don't have a lot of work experience because I am still in college. That's okay. Put down what you're doing. The same rules apply. Commitment and responsibility. Show me that someone is treating you like a leader in your job, whatever that job may be. Show me that you're not just job hopping every couple of months. Or if you are, I really do want to know what's going on. There may be a perfectly valid reason, I just need to know what it is because it doesn't come through in just a super long list of things. The other thing that I want to make sure that you know is that on the volunteer work side for my college students, extracurriculars should be treated in a similar fashion. Again, same rules apply. Commitment, responsibility. I would much rather see a student that has joined a handful of groups, but has been in them all 4 years or however many years you're in college, that you've taken on executive positions, that you've held an officer position, that you've organized some major event, some major project through that organization. I would much rather see that than see that you are a member, just a member, of like 16 clubs. Again, that's cool, glad for you. I maybe wouldn't include those on your resume if there are 16 of them. Pick the ones that you held an office position in. And finally, if there is something that you're thinking, you know, I did this thing, volunteer, maybe not job, probably, research, whatever it is. I did this thing, but I'm not totally sure if it fits on the resume. That's okay too. Most law school applications are going to have a box somewhere in the application that gives you a chance to list out all of the things that maybe don't make it to your resume. The resume should be your highlights reel. And in some cases, it's really, really important to see what it is you've been working on. So the next thing that I want to talk about, just for very, very quickly, are letters of recommendation. Please, for the love of all things holy, do not phone in your letters of recommendation. Actually put some thought into who you are asking, because these give a committee member, me, so much insight. It gives me a chance to see what other people say about you, when in all likelihood, you're not going to see what they write. So you, theoretically, should trust the people that you're asking to say nice things about the things that are important to me as a committee member. I want to know about these particular skills. You go to a professor, hey, I'm applying to law school. I'd really love you to talk about this because your class was so important to me. I learned so much in these different areas. I think you saw my growth. I would love for you to tell a committee about that. That also shows me that you have some good judgment because you have chosen the right people. Good letters of recommendation, great letters of recommendation are awesome. They are always helpful, but a bad letter of recommendation can sink an application. I think every committee member, every person that has ever read applications has some horror stories. Those are the ones that stick with us and the ones that we tell later as cautionary tales. If you take nothing else away from this video today, I really, really want you to take this. When you are asking for letters of recommendation, think about who you are asking, and then when you choose to ask them, make sure you are asking if they would write a strong, positive letter of recommendation. Ideally, if someone doesn't think they can do that, they'll tell you no. If you've been a jerk for an entire semester, they may be like, yeah, okay, you told me to write a letter of recommendation. I can do that. If you didn't include that strong positive piece, there is a very real chance that the recommendation would be do not admit this person. I say that because I've seen it. Think about these. It is really, really, really hard for a committee to look at an applicant that has a perfectly fine application and then a really bad letter of recommendation. Like, if someone has gone out of their way to type all of this up and submit it, instead of telling the person that they just don't feel like they are the best pick, it means I probably don't want this person. They are probably going to make my life more difficult as a faculty member, as an administrator, whatever it is. Maybe not. Maybe that professor has a grudge. But again, that's part of the good judgment piece. The last thing I want to say on letters of recommendation is it is always going to be quality over quantity. Most law schools are going to give you a maximum of 4 letters. Some may choose less. You will have a minimum required, most are 1 or 2, cap at 3 or 4. Do not think that you can overcome mediocre quality letters of recommendation by sending more. I would much rather, and it is much more beneficial to you, to send me 2 really, really, really strong letters of recommendation than for you to send me 2 really strong ones and 2 okay. Quality over quantity. Always. The last thing that I want to talk about are your essays. I cannot stress enough how important your essays in your application are to the application process. This is often the only way that you get to share who you are with the committee in your own voice. Most committee members don't get the chance to meet students. If they do, it's like one-off at a law fair or something like that, if it's an admissions person that also sits on committee. Half the time, they have no idea who you are outside of the bounds of those 4 sides of paper. So your essays are the chance to fill that picture in for them. If interviews do happen, which are rare, they are almost always after your application has been reviewed. So your essays are still going to be your first impression, if not your only one in that sense. Just generally, quality matters. Your personal statement, for example, every school requires one. That personal statement can tell me a lot of things as a committee member. The first one, and probably the easiest to spot, is whether or not you're a good writer. If it is full of mechanical errors, grammatical errors, spellings all over the place, 1, I would love to know what program you're working in, because I know that every word processor I have ever used is very, very clear about spelling. I say as someone who is a notoriously bad speller. Make sure that this is some of your best writing. Before we even get to the content, make sure it is some of your mechanically best writing. The other thing that it shows me, particularly when you have chosen to share a thoughtful, well-written, engaging essay, is that you've put some time into the essay that you're giving to me. This is really the only piece of writing. There are plenty that give you the opportunity to write more essays, but at minimum, you're giving a personal statement to every law school that you apply to. I want to see that you have put care and thought into what you've chosen to write about. Most personal statements, it's tell us a little bit about yourself, your goals, your motivations, why are you coming to law school. It's pretty broad. It's mostly just tell me about you, relevant to why we are here. So if you haven't given much thought to why it is you want to go to law school, or you're super general, or you're super dramatic for no real reason, like you were throwing drama in to throw drama in, or you're throwing trauma in just to throw trauma in because you think that's what we want to see, it's not. Shock and awe, not your best strategy. That tells me in a lot of ways that you are covering something with shock and awe. You want me to pay less attention to something over here, so you're going to make this really flashy. Please don't do that. Think about what you are telling me. Think about who you are writing to, why you are writing this essay. The other thing, and this is a pretty simple one, it shows me if you can follow directions. Every application has directions for every essay they ask for. Some of them are fairly broad, some of them are very specific. If you did not follow the directions, whether it be formatting or the prompt that you are asked to answer, if you can't follow those directions, why on earth would I think that you are going to follow future directions? Most of law school is following directions, whether it's in class or in your final exams, and it's certainly the bar exam. So if we're starting off rough there, I have concerns. The other thing is that particularly in the optional essays, usually this can be anything from a why did I choose to apply to this law school? What type of diversity do I bring to the class? Have you overcome something, whether it is socioeconomic, emotional, physical, whatever it is? Have you overcome something to get you here? Most of these are optional, but I really do want you to take the time to write them. Because a personal statement in general is 2 or 3 pages. Almost always 2. You may not be able to tell me the whole story in 2 pages. There may be an optional essay that's going to shed more light on why it is you've chosen to apply to my school specifically. I don't know necessarily when I start reading your application that your great-grandfather went here, that your great-grandmother went here, that your grandma went here, that your dad went here. Like, if you have a family connection to the law school, that's a great reason to share. Probably shouldn't be the only reason, but it's a great reason that I would not otherwise pick up on. If there's a particular clinic or a particular professor that is like dead on what it is that you want to do and you're so excited about the research that they're working on or the opportunity to learn from them, tell me about it. There's no place for that in your personal statement. I can infer, oh, this person's really excited about family law. They've been involved with family-related things for a really long time, and they've specifically told me they want to go into the law to work with families. I can put that together, but I don't know if that's true. It may just be coincidence, and you're really excited to be here because of the location or because of another program that's adjacent to what it is you want to do. If I have given you the space to do that, please take advantage of it. You may wonder why I'm harping on this. In a lot of cases, if the hard factors, LSAT, GPA, are right on the line, really good essays can push you over to admit. If your hard factors are awesome and you just phone in the application essays. I say having read several from students who statistically would be very admittable, but have very clearly not taken the rest of the process seriously, I will advocate for them to not be admitted. The whole application is important. We make that abundantly clear. And if you think, well, my LSAT's great, my GPA is great, I don't need to do this, that's not true. You still do. And I will suggest that my committee deny you if you approach it that way. Same goes for someone who is statistically maybe not a safe bet. If you've written me a compelling set of essays, if I understand the story that has brought you to this point and the whys behind your GPA or your LSAT, and I think there is something here. I think there is potential in this applicant that may just not translate. The essays are where I'm going to get a lot of that information, where I'm going to see there is something in this applicant's history that has made it a little difficult for them to do super well in college, or they have got such a story and such a compelling reason to be here, and the LSAT may not be the highest, but it's certainly still within the range of admittable. I think we should take a chance on this person. That's how those things come to be. It's not your GPA that says we should take a chance on this one. It's the care and time that you've put into your essays. It's the stories that you've chosen to share that build out that full picture of you as a human. That's where I see those things that are going to be like, this one's worth it. That is the only way, in a lot of cases, that a committee gets to see you as a full person. It is on paper. It oftentimes will confirm the things that we see in your hard factors, your LSAT, your GPA, all of the rest of it. For most applicants, it really is just everything here looks good, or nothing here looks good. Or, like I was talking about with those statistically super admittable folks that don't do much work on the softer factors, like writing, you see my LSAT score, I deserve to be here, as your personal statement, that is telling me that your hard factors are not painting me the whole picture. They are providing the information that I need to know, that I wouldn't get if I just saw your LSAT and your GPA. So at the end of all of this, there is a second thing that you take away from this video. It's that hard factors are great, your LSAT and your GPA are super helpful, but the soft factors matter so much. You will hear probably every admissions counselor, every admissions director, every admissions person in the law school world say that the whole application is important. They are not lying to you. You do not get to decide which pieces are important on your own. We're telling you that all of them are, and we will make our decisions accordingly as we see what you've done with all of the pieces of your application, including those soft factors. So if this was helpful, like and subscribe below, share it with a friend. If you want to learn more about law school admissions and the things that I've talked about today, join us for our virtual Break Into Law conference on July 8th and 9th. It is free, it is virtual. There are tons of really great panels of folks that are working in admissions, that work in LSAT prep, that are current practicing attorneys, that have done all sorts of really cool things, and it is totally free for you. The other really neat thing, I've talked a lot about admissions folks, people that work in admissions offices. I used to be one. It's hard for me to step out of that even now years later. There's going to be a law fair. So you have the chance, wherever it is you are, to talk to law schools from all over the country without leaving your home. The other thing that's going to be super cool is that we have a career fair with legal organizations as well. Obviously, if you are currently in the process of applying to law school, you're probably not going to be talking to them about jobs, but having access to the people that work in these fields is going to be super helpful. I hope to see you there. And like I said, if this has been helpful, like and subscribe. Talk to you soon.